And too often defenders of capitalism have tried to do this. The conservatives, and I'm not talking about the British conservatives, the American conservatives, although I think many of the British conservatives suffer from the same problem. The conservatives in the US think capitalism is a great economic system. They get it. They get how it creates wealth and how people are better off under it. But they find it distasteful because it's focused on self-interest. So for example, Irving Kristol, a famous American neoconservative, wrote a book called 2 Cheers for Capitalism. Now, why only 2 cheers? Why not 3? Because it's a system that promotes self-interest and selfishness. Not only that, it rewards it, right? If you make a lot of money for a firm, you get big bonuses. You're encouraged to make more money, to be more successful. I mean, CEO pay, bonuses, all of that are rewards for selfish activity, for being self-interested. So Irving Kristol said, no, I cannot give capitalism a 3rd cheer. It's a good system, it works economically well, but it's a little distasteful. Now, I don't think you can really defend capitalism based on that. A friend of Irving Kristol's, is Michael Novak, gave a talk in Asia about the virtues of capitalism, and he goes through the whole talk about how wonderful capitalism, how good it is, and he gets to the last segment, and he says, look, even though it produces all this wealth and it's really good and everybody benefits, Irving Kristol gives it 2 cheers. I don't really think it deserves that. 1 cheer is good enough. And this is in a big speech defending capitalism. This is the conservatives. They're altruists. They bought into altruism. They believe in altruism. They're committed altruists. They cannot mesh that with their understanding of capitalism, and they try a balancing act. And the reason, and as a consequence, what happened to the conservative movement in the United States is it drifts leftward. It drifts towards the left. Because whose economic system fits perfectly with altruism? Well, the socialists. They're collectivists. They're oriented towards others, sharing, all of that, far more consistent with socialism. The conservatives know this deep down, and they're willing to continuously compromise on capitalism and continuously drift leftwards. That has been the history of American politics for the last 100 years, how the right has moved left. There are a few blips in the other direction, but the systemic, the long-term projection is leftwards. And I think the cause of that is the fact that they never bought into the ethics associated with capitalism. The libertarians, on the other hand, tend to avoid all discussion of ethics altogether. That's not for them. That's philosophy. We start with liberty. We start with the non-initiation of force. We're not interested in morality. And I think by doing that, many libertarians have given up on the real battle for capitalism. Because, again, I believe the real battle is not at the level of the non-initiation of force. I think you have to prove the non-initiation of force. I don't think the non-initiation of force is this idea that as long as we don't initiate force against one another, then well, everything's fine. And the government doesn't initiate force, that's fine. But how do you convince people that that's a good idea? Most altruists think that initiating force is fine, as long as you're making the other person better. For example, tax is a good way to initiate force, because you've got too much, he's got too little. What can be immoral about me taking some of your money and giving it to him? That seems like a completely reasonable thing to do if you're an altruist. Libertarians can't win the argument just on the basis of politics. In order to win this argument, we have to go to morality. We have to argue against altruism as an ethical system, against the notion of selflessness, against the notion of self-sacrifice, and for the notion of what Ayn Rand defined as rational egoism, rational self-interest, rational selfishness. And let me just spend a couple of minutes outlining what that actually means, and I encourage you to read Ayn Rand, read some of her nonfiction essays in which she deals with this in more detail. But this is not about the line stealing and cheating. This is about figuring out. And this is hard work. In my view, being self-interested is very hard work. Because it's not about line stealing and cheating. It's not about doing whatever you feel like doing, because feelings are not tools of cognition. Just because I feel like doing something doesn't make it good for me. Being rationally self-interested means really thinking through, figuring out what is really good for me over the long term, over the scope of my life? What are the actions, what are the values and the virtues that I need to hold over the span of my life to make me the best person I can be, the happiest person I can be, the most successful person I can be? That takes thinking. It takes hard work. It's not about being driven by your emotions. It's not about, you know, lying, stealing, cheating, which are anti-productive, anti-selfish actions. It's about really figuring out what makes you happy and how one goes about achieving that. It's about figuring out how to be productive, how to make a living, and going about figuring out how to do that as well as one can do. So in my view, if we're going to defend capitalism, if we're going to save capitalism for clearly, in the US at least, a clear leftist drift, it's, I think, slow, but it's a clear left-wing drift. We need to start advocating not just for the economics of capitalism, which I think, by the way, the economic arguments for capitalism were made, you know, as well 50 years ago as they are today. You know, the Austrian economists, you know, some of the Chicago economists have solved, I think, the puzzles from an economic perspective. There's nothing new in economics, I think, that needs to be done in order to save capitalism. We need to start, together with those economic arguments that need to continue to be made, we need to start making these moral arguments. We need to fight for something that people are still quite uncomfortable with, this notion of rational self-interest. This notion, and I think, at least in America, I think it's a little more difficult in Europe. America has this wonderful political heritage. And it has as its founding document, a document that has, I think, in the most profound political statement in human history. It has a statement that each one of us has an inalienable right to our own life, our own liberty, and in the most selfish political statement in the history of mankind. Each one of us has a right to pursue our own happiness. Not the happiness of the community, not the state, not anybody else, but our own happiness. The right to pursue happiness is profound. And I think that that's what, you know, that's what the pro-capitalist movement, at least in the States, needs to latch onto that. Because Americans still believe in that to some extent. And if we can give that content, if we can give that a philosophical grounding, I think this is winnable, this battle that we're all fighting, or many of us are fighting for more freedom, more capitalism, you know, freer markets. So I hope you all join me. Read more Ayn Rand. Educate yourself about these moral issues. I think they're really crucial. And let's bring the debate, let's make this debate deeper. Let's make this debate not just about the economics, a debate I think we won a long time ago. Let's make this debate about morality, and if we do, I think the future's ours. Thank you.